Today I've got 10 mistakes that preppers make. Welcome to Homestead Corner. I'm Ginny, and today I thought we would go over 10 pretty common mistakes that preppers make. And we all make mistakes. None of us are perfect. I have made just about every one of these mistakes myself. So I think it's important to talk about these mistakes because it can really help other people and get them back on track, or maybe recognize something that they could be doing differently and help them. Everybody's a little bit different, and I think it is really important. The more we share, the easier it is for everybody. We can really help someone by just sharing our own experiences and things that we've done wrong, because those mistakes can be costly if it goes over a long period of time. So correcting them and getting back to doing things, more efficiently and properly is definitely going to help all of us. So the first mistake on my list is definitely one that I have made, and it's taking on too much. We tend to do that a lot. I know I do that all the time. It is a problem that I have is I think I am superwoman some days and I can do a lot more than I actually can get done. So taking on too much can be a big problem. And, thinking forward a little bit can be extra helpful for us, especially where the gardens are starting to produce, they're growing. Once canning starts, preserving, all that stuff, it really takes up a lot of time. And we want to make sure we've got enough time to take care of all those foods that we're growing in the garden and, making our medicines, still practicing our firearms, things like that. We want to make sure we have enough time, and we also have to live. We've got to still live life and not just be consumed by prepping. It's really important that we're able to do that because our mental health is a really big deal. So overwhelming yourself, I know that's a huge problem for me, and I definitely have to take a step back all the time and relook at what I think I can get done. And number 2 on my list is not enough water. A lot of people do not store enough water. I think it's important to have as much water as possible, but in a long-term situation, you are never going to have enough. Filling that water up the best you can is wonderful, but also making sure you've got water filters and you're prepared to filter water when your stash runs out. Because in a long-term situation, it's going to run out. And number 3, putting off your health and dental issues, care for those issues. We need to make sure that we're keeping ourselves in the best condition possible. Our teeth, our health, we want to be right on top of that stuff because it's really important. We don't know if a large disaster is going to happen tonight, tomorrow, next week. You want to make sure if you're staying on top of it, you're going to be in the best condition possible. So if you've got some kind of issue going on with your teeth or your health or anything like that, making sure we're getting that taken care of right away is super important. Number 4 on my list, overestimating your preparedness. A lot of times we think we have more than we do, especially when that comes to food storage, ammo, something like that. We want to make sure that we actually do have enough of it. And our food storage is one that a lot of people, they look at it and it looks really big. But if you look at how much food you actually eat in a weekend, just if you only eat from your pantry Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 3 days, if you only eat from your pantry, you will see what a huge dent you're going to put in that food. It always looks like more than it is, but it goes so fast when you really start digging into it. Your food storage really needs to be quite large. That's where those rice and beans and things like that come in, those dried storage items. Those come in really handy because you can stock quite a lot of those, and for a very long time you can store them. And making sure we've just got enough, and a lot of times we overestimate our capabilities with our prepping, what we're able to do, how much we physically can do and what we actually have. When we overestimate our abilities, it can be life-threatening. So we want to make sure that we can actually do and we have the things that we need. Started raining, so we had to move to the porch. Number 5, mental training. We definitely need to stay on top of that. We want to make sure that we're mentally prepared for these emergencies. A long-term situation, heck, even short-term situations, I have definitely struggled with how am I going to handle it. You don't want to be having a breakdown or anything, and you need to be prepared to handle this stuff mentally. So going through my plan, I found, has been very helpful for me in different situations. How am I going to handle it? What steps I'm going to take? Things like that. If we are practicing our emergency plans, it definitely makes it easier for us that we can get through these situations when we need to. But your mental health is definitely a huge factor that a lot of people forget about. And I think it is so important to make sure that we're actually going to be able to handle these situations, because even the best mentally prepared person that has gone over this and figured it all out how they're going to do it, and if everything went perfect according to plan, you still can snap. It can happen. None of us are perfect. We all make mistakes, so making sure we're as prepared as possible is so, so important. And number 6, forgetting our animals. We have pets that rely on us every single day. I think it is so important to make sure we're stocked up on food. We have a plan what we're going to do when that food runs out, because dry kibble and store-bought foods do not last long term. So we can only store so much of it as long as it is good. And making sure you've got a plan and you're ready to put that in place. We use dry kibble for our dogs, but we also make homemade dog food all the time. If something were to happen long term and we didn't have the dry kibble anymore, it's okay. They're already used to that homemade dog food, so we can transition them right over to that solely. And we need to remember that before commercial dog food came out, 50, 60 years ago, people just fed their dogs what they were eating. We obviously have to be careful about things that can be toxic to our animals. And we want to remember livestock. Have you got grain ahead, your hay ahead, all that stuff? We really need to be thinking about that, because it's not just us. They're dependent on us right now, and they're still going to be dependent in an emergency. So making sure we're prepared to continue to take care of them is really important. Number 7, this one shocks me again and again, that a lot of people do not have basic cooking skills. You are going to have to cook all your food at some point. You cannot, if we have a huge emergency, you're not going to be running down to McDonald's or Wendy's or wherever you normally grab a quick bite to eat, or the donut shop. You're going to have to make all those foods yourself. And prepping and preparing all these different foods, putting them in your food storage and having zero idea to cook them is not a good plan. You want to practice with those foods. Even if they are 25, 30-year long-term foods, open something. And, open a bag of rice, open, a bag of beans, open 1 can of, freeze-dried meat, whatever it is. Practice with those foods and make sure that you're able to cook them so they taste good. There's nothing worse in an emergency situation than having a bunch of food that you can't stand because you didn't take the time to learn how to cook it. And most of these things are super simple and easy to cook, and having lots of spices will give you a lot of variety. But just learning those basic cooking skills and knowing how to cook all of the foods that you have in your pantry can be super helpful, because when Wendy's isn't there, you're going to want that stuff. And we need to know how to cook. It shocks me that people don't cook every day at home, especially where the prices are now. I can't even imagine taking my kids out to a fast food restaurant and spending $60 or $70 for lunch, because that is exactly what it would cost just for lunch. So get those basic cooking skills. You don't have to be a sous chef or anything like that. Just being able to cook those foods so they taste good for you and your family is all you need to know, really. And number 8, communication. A lot of people forget about communications. You are going to be able to need to know what is going on. If the grid goes down for a long-term situation and you don't know what's going on out there, that can be dangerous if something is coming towards you. Being able to find out what's going on out in the world is important. Having radios, having two-way radios to contact your close by neighbors, relatives, things like that. I mean, we have neighbors that are very close, and we are able to communicate with them without leaving our houses if it's too dangerous. And I think that is really important, making sure we've got all of those things in place. If you are a ham radio user, or you could learn how to use a ham radio, that's going to give you more information further out so you can see what is going on. Your regular, like a FRS two-way radios, like walkie-talkies, are great if you're close by someone, but they're not good for long-term, further away stuff. You're not going to be able to find that out. So a GRMS is a little bit better, but the ham radio is definitely a great way to go if you want to be able to get long-distance information. And number 9, ignoring fitness. A lot of people don't want to think about the work that they're going to have to put in a long-term situation, or even in short-term stuff. If you're stuck out on a back road, cell phone's dead, or there's no way to call anybody. I know a lot of times when we go out, our phones don't work because there's no service most of the places we drive in through. So if we get stuck out there, we need to be physically fit enough to get to where we need to go. And this may be a little short-term emergency, like a flat tire or blown engine or whatever. But we need to make sure that we're physically capable to do the things that we got to do. If we're stuck out there and that cell phone doesn't work and we can't reach anybody, we're going to have to start hoofing it. Having those extra shoes in the car is an awesome idea. So you've got something comfortable to wear, and also, you know, making sure we are physically fit to do the things that we need to do. And number 10, I am totally guilty of this one. Letting your house maintenance slide. Not fixing things when things break down, or if you notice you've got, you know, weak railings, or the latch isn't right on the windows, or your lock breaks on a door or something like that. Making sure we're staying on top of that maintenance is so important. This could be our survival shelter. Your home is more than likely going to be a survival shelter in an emergency situation. Sometimes you have to evacuate, but sometimes your safest bet is to stay right where you are and shelter in place. And making sure your home is safe and everything is in good working order is super important, because if something happens tomorrow and you forgot to fix that broken window, or you just didn't have time to get to it, that's one of those things that can really cause a huge problem, and you're not going to be able to fix it later. So we want to make sure that we're staying on top of that. When something happens, our home is in the best condition possible, so we're able to stay there and shelter in place, and it can be our little sanctuary and our safety net for as long as we have to. So that's it for my 10 mistakes, but I think that it's so important to go over these because we all can make mistakes. None of us are perfect. I have made most of these mistakes myself, and they are definitely pretty common for people to do. And getting overwhelmed is not my intention here at all. Taking a step back, looking at where you're at in each one of these, I think can be helpful. And if you've made other mistakes, or these mistakes even, commenting down below can really be helpful to other people. They can see that, you know, I'm not the only one making these mistakes, or they're not the only one making a mistake. And it may be helpful to bring to light a mistake that they might be making, that they can change up and rethink about that so they can fix it and make it better for them and more efficient for their family, so they have time to be with their family and live and do all the things that we need to be doing, plus getting our preparedness in order, being ready for when disaster strikes. And that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.